as
Jin
well.
Young, your theme is infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. You talked about at the end of the year we're going to have remittances from overseas workers. And before this year, some of the naysayers about the Philippine economy predicted that if the global economies are going to basically do poorly, that remittances will decrease coming in by as much as some analysts predicted by as much as 20% decrease. And yet we've actually seen an increase in remittances. Why is that?
Well, in fact, there was some, this gloomy sort of projections for the remittances in the beginning of the financial crisis, because remittance is a very important component for the Philippines national accounts.
Yeah, it is the largest dollar earner for the country.
Exactly. It's actually accounting for more than like a 10%, on average. So it did raise a lot of questions whether or not the remittances will be able to sustain during the global slowdown. It turned out as a positive surprise to the Philippines that the Philippine remittance is relatively well balanced. In a way, this is it's not really focused only one country. So it's not like a U.S. or Europe that are much more targeted during the global crisis. A lot of them are in the Middle Eastern countries, and the high oil prices still sort of pushing, and then those economies are growing relatively strong. And then also, they are generally spread it out a lot. I think the Middle Eastern is definitely the first for the Philippine, overseas workers.
Correct.
But a lot of them are also in Asia. And then Asian economies also have been relatively shielded from the global crisis and then doing very well. So in a way, it's generally well diversified in terms of the geography. And also the Philippine workers are much more in areas that are not very much affected by this financial crisis, because they are in domestic helpers and then they are nursing industries. So those are not the ones that will be sacked immediately.
In fact, they're still in the service sectors, right? Let me bring you to inclusive growth, and we'll take a question from social media from @AjaxBreeze. What can government do so growth also benefits the base of the pyramid? How can Filipinos feel this? What can government do so that the poorest of the poor can feel the growth?
In terms of the inclusive growth, in fact, the sources of growth in the Philippines should be working much better for the broader public, because they are really much based on the services industries. It really is going to create a lot of jobs. I mean, it's more like a labor intensive. And then they generally it's a call center. These growth drivers, as you can see, are much more labor intensive.
Right.
So structurally, in a way, the Philippines' growth should be able to trickle down its effect on the broader public. But as I mentioned also, these bottlenecks, infrastructure, education, those have to be addressed, especially the infrastructure from the supply of labor side. They should be able to really bring out a strong sort of human capital. They have to, the countries have to be able to, provide more training, more education opportunities, not only just schools, but also more technical and vocational training. So those can be really linked with the job opportunities that people can exploit.
You're pushing and moving the entire labor force up the value chain.
Yeah.
How much time will that take? I mean, education can take a decade. I mean, can you see this trickle down in the short term?
Well, it's not going to be easy to see anything in the short term, but strong remittances also can be mobilized to help the rural households, and then but to to be able to effectively mobilize remittances, what do you need? Like, you know, I mean, a lot of times, you know, people receive the remittances and they just spend on clothes and then housing and then, you know, but you should be able to channel these into investment for the future. You know, you should be able to somehow like really provide support for the household to channel those into much more community-driven investment and education. Of the households who receive these remittances. Those will be important.
Fantastic. Education and infrastructure. Another question from social media from @It'sEdward. This is interesting. What's the best investment for someone with an average salary? You're not a trader, but if you're looking at sectors, you know, which sector should grow significantly?
Well, again, the growth have been broad-based across most of the sectors.
That's
the
great.
services,
That does show it could be sustainable, right? If it's broad-based.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a sign of resilience of this strong growth. Definitely, it's services. You know, BPOs, call centers. I mean, they are growing very strong. Also, you know, there's going to be some electronics, I think, is also growing relatively strong. And then given the government push, I believe that there are a lot of opportunities in the infrastructure investment. You know, there's like a social infrastructure sectors. Those could be, again, that should be definitely, it's more, you know, it's something that the country actually needs, and then the government made a strong commitment, so that's for future.
Fantastic. Well, I'll just close. There are more questions, but we'll answer them a little bit later, I guess. You can continue tweeting your questions on social media. Tweet #TalkThursday and tweet it to @Rappler.com. Sin Young, just your last thoughts now. We're beginning, it's the end of the third quarter. We're going fourth quarter. As you said, remittances are expected to increase, but again, the peso is so strong that actually could be a limiting factor for the overseas Filipinos who are sending money in, that could boost the fourth quarter. Your prognosis for the Philippines now and looking ahead, bright spots and weaknesses to be aware
of? Definitely, it is on the rock as of now. I believe that the momentum will at least continue in the near term. It's relatively broadly balanced, and then you know, just you see a strong sort of signs of growth. You know, all corners of economy, which is very good. In terms of something that the policymakers have to watch out is definitely, like, you know, I think fundamentally what's really boosting the investor confidence have been much improved the macroeconomic environment. So,
what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, they have been able to keep inflation relatively stable and low. You know, they especially on the public debt side, the government debt have come down significantly, which really gave a strong sort of sign that government is doing their, you know, their household in order.
Correct.
So. That's a very encouraging sign.
You're giving good marks for the management of the economy.
Yeah, macroeconomic management have been very, very good.
Okay.
But you know, that means that they have to continue.
Correct.
Yeah, they're you know, but you know, they actually have a lot of projects going on. It's going to need a lot of resources. That should not give the government sort of green light somehow, like, you know, again going over their budget.
Yeah.
So that's something that the government should also, you know, have in mind. It's very important to maintain, you know, very tight monitoring of the inflation.
Yes.
It's been good that the Philippine peso have been relatively strong, so it's sort of counterbalancing the inflationary pressure.
Correct.
But nonetheless, I mean, I think the government now the central bank it doesn't really need to lower the interest rate anymore to boost the economy. I mean, they may actually have to think about like what is the inflationary pressure, or is there building up of inflationary pressure, and they have to really continuously monitor these inflationary pressure. Also, they also have to the government side keep sort of monitoring their budgetary condition
spending,
and then spending. They should be able to balance supporting the infrastructure investment while not wrecking up again
their budget. Right.
So those macroeconomic fundamentals should be the one they have to definitely continue and maintain.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Asian Development Bank's economist, Sin Young Park. Tweet your questions if you have any more to @Rappler.com. ADB is also at Asian Development Bank, is also on Twitter. You can follow them and ask questions as we move forward. It's third quarter growth rate, very strong. We're moving into the fourth quarter. The Philippines is in a good place. I'm Maria Ressa. Thank you for joining us on Talk Thursday.